A trip to the Carolinas would be a welcome distraction for the president. His former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who has already been convicted of bank fraud and tax evasion, has now pleaded guilty to other charges in a deal with special counsel Robert Mueller's office. Mr. Trump's pick for the U.S. Supreme Court has also hit a possible snag. An anonymous woman claims Brett Kavanaugh assaulted her when they were in high school. Kavanaugh denies that allegation. And Mr. Trump continues to insist that 3,000 people did not die in Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria 1 year ago. He tweeted the new death toll was cooked up to make him look bad. Let's talk about the recent developments with the president with political analyst Peter Mathews joining us from Los Angeles, where he teaches political science at Cypress College. Peter, we always appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Let's get started with midterm elections that could swing Congress in the Democrats' favor. But the president now has approval ratings at the lowest point in the last 6 months. And many inside Washington say this vote will be a referendum on the president. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's on the right track because the president's popularity rating has a lot to do with whether or not his party can retain seats in the midterm election. He's already going against a headwind because normally speaking, when a president's in office for 2 years, his party loses seats. And on top of that, his popularity is so low, it's in the 30% range, approval rating and popularity, that it's going to be a real drag on many Republican candidates running for office. In fact, next door to my house, my district, is Dana Rohrabacher, who's a Republican who's been there for decades, and his seat is in danger now. He's about 3 points behind the Democratic challenger. And that's part of that Democratic blue wave that people are looking for to save the country from this disaster to some extent that's been going on.
Yeah, but on the other side, though, the economy is humming along. Remember when James Carville said during the Clinton campaign, it's the economy, stupid, unemployment's very low, and the president's base is extremely loyal. How do you think that may factor in?
Well, the base is loyal, but it's not large enough to put him over the top necessarily, although in the midterm election, that could be a possibility. But also, you know, the economy that's humming along, it's mostly humming for the top half of the population. Many of those jobs that were brought back, and not actually that were kept here under Trump's trade wars, are really causing also other jobs to be lost. When he puts tariffs on steel and aluminum, for example, then other jobs in the industry of making mobile homes are lost. And so thousands of jobs have been gained and lost. It's kind of a wash. And many of the new jobs that have been brought in are really low-paying jobs. So while the economy is humming along for the top part of the country and the stock market is doing well, what about Main Street America? And I think that has to be looked at very carefully, including many of Trump's own voters in Main Street America and the rural areas, too.
Let's talk about this past week. Mr. Trump's week was in part characterized by his former campaign manager entering that plea deal with prosecutors in the Russia investigation. His spokeswoman, Sarah Sanders, said this about that. This had absolutely nothing to do with the president or his victorious 2016 presidential campaign. It is totally unrelated. How do they know that, though, Peter? They're brushing it off, but how worrisome could Manafort be to Mr. Trump?
I think probably the most worrisome of any of these people who have been charged, and some of them have been convicted, Michael Cohen has become a cooperating, with the investigation with Mueller, and Mr. Weisselberg, the CFO of Trump Organization, is also starting to cooperate now, has agreed to cooperate. And now comes Manafort. He's the big enchilada because he was the campaign chairman for 3 months when Trump was turned around from a challenger who didn't have much of a chance into a winning candidate who was within reach of the presidency. And he probably, without him, Trump would not be the president right now. And Manafort knows a lot because he worked for pro-Russian candidates in the Ukraine. And then also he took a lot of money from sources from that part of the world. And we also helped, he knows people in Russia who are business people and oligarchs, some of whom apparently, according to Mueller and his team, says that there had been some communication going on there. And don't forget, Manafort was at the Trump Tower meeting along with John Jr. and others. So this is a lot of very shady appearances here. We'll have to wait and see how the evidence turns out in the end, though.
We also saw his pick for the U.S. Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, facing a new allegation of sexual assault. How likely is it that this could delay or even derail his confirmation?
That may be the nail in the coffin, possibly, because there are two senators, particularly two women senators, one from Maine and one from Alaska, Murkowski and Senator Collins from Maine. And they're being targeted quite a bit by those who are concerned that Kavanaugh would be retrograde in many ways, not just on labor and the environment, but also for women's issues, especially the issue of choice on abortion. And in fact, the Maine senator is being targeted in the sense there's a whole group that are raising money now for a possible opponent to her re-election bid in 2020 if she votes for Kavanaugh. They've put it out there. So they're really holding her feet to the fire to vote against Kavanaugh because of the fear that he'll be the vote that actually ends up nullifying Roe v. Wade, which will be very serious for American women especially.
There is much to watch that's going on in D.C. for sure, and we appreciate your insights, Peter. Peter Mathews for us. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.